I mistakenly sat in my sister-in-law's chair at a family gathering. When she saw me, she was filled with anger and confronted me, then slapped me hard across the face in front of the family. My brother supported her, and in that moment, I decided on revenge and to involve the police. But before the police arrived, something unexpected happened that changed everything. My name is Claire Thompson, and I'm a 28-year-old marketing specialist living in a cozy apartment in Dallas, Texas. I've always loved this city, the energy, the vibrant art scene, and the sense of community that pulses through every corner. My job keeps me engaged, and I take pride in my work, but the most cherished relationship in my life is with my younger brother, Ethan. Growing up, Ethan and I were inseparable. He was the little brother I always wanted, and we shared countless adventures together. I remember building forts out of blankets and exploring the backyard for hours, lost in our imaginary worlds. As he grew older, our bond only deepened. I had always thought that nothing could come between us, especially when he started dating. When Ethan introduced me to his girlfriend, Melanie, I was excited. She seemed perfect for him, charming, funny, and engaging. The first time we met was at a family barbecue. I remember watching Ethan's face light up as he spoke to her, and I couldn't help but smile. It was a joy to see him so happy. "Claire, you're going to love her," he had said, practically bouncing on his heels. "She's amazing." As the evening wore on, Melanie proved Ethan right. She had a captivating personality that drew everyone in. We laughed, shared stories, and I felt a wave of warmth. This was the woman my brother had chosen, and I couldn't have been more thrilled. But as the months went by, something changed. At first, I brushed it off as jealousy or insecurity. I was still adjusting to the idea of sharing my brother with someone else. However, it became clear that Melanie had a darker side. At family gatherings, she often made subtle, biting remarks that left me feeling small. One Thanksgiving, I brought my famous pumpkin pie, a recipe passed down from our grandmother. When it was time for dessert, Melanie casually said, "Oh, I thought I was doing dessert this year." The way she said it, with a playful tone, disguised the sting. I forced a smile. "Must have slipped my mind," I replied, feeling the warmth of embarrassment creep up my cheeks. As the months rolled on, her comments escalated. "Still single, Claire? You should really try dating someone. It might do wonders for your personality," she quipped one evening during dinner. I felt my heart sink, the jab piercing through my defenses. I tried to brush it off, thinking she was just being playful. But with every family gathering, Melanie's barbs became sharper, and I felt increasingly isolated. I confided in my best friend, Luke, one night while we were out for coffee. "Luke, something feels off with Melanie," I admitted, stirring my drink anxiously. At first, I thought she was great, but now she's just different. "Different how?" Luke asked, raising an eyebrow. "She makes these comments that feel like insults. It's like she's trying to undermine me," I replied, feeling a wave of frustration wash over me. "Have you talked to Ethan about it?" I hesitated, thinking about my brother's love for her. I don't want to cause any problems. He's so in love with her. "Claire, you can't ignore this. You deserve to feel safe and respected in your family," Luke urged, concern etched on his face. I nodded, knowing he was right, but the thought of confrontation made my stomach twist. Days turned into weeks, and Melanie's behavior only worsened. She began meddling in my relationship with Ethan, deleting messages he sent to me or not telling me about family events. I felt like I was losing my brother, and the worst part was that I felt powerless to stop it. Finally, everything came to a head during another family dinner at our parents' home. I had arrived early to help with the preparations, and as everyone gathered, I sat in a chair that I assumed was available. However, when Melanie walked in and saw me, her face twisted in anger. "Excuse me, that's my seat," she snapped. I blinked in confusion. "I didn't realize there was a specific spot for you." Her eyes narrowed, and the tension in the room skyrocketed. "It's always been my spot. You should know that by now." Everyone was staring, and my heart raced. "It's just a chair, Melanie. Let's not make a scene," Ethan interjected, trying to diffuse the growing tension. But Melanie wasn't having it. No, Claire is always trying to take everything from me. She's always trying to steal my spotlight. I felt the weight of her accusations. I'm not trying to take anything. I just sat down. Before I could gather my thoughts, the atmosphere grew thick with hostility. As emotions flared, I braced myself for the storm that was about to unfold, completely unaware of how deeply this moment would impact our family and the relationships I held dear. I had to confront this situation, not just for myself but for my brother as well, and the storm that was brewing inside me was ready to break free. The aftermath of the dinner was chaotic. I felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with disbelief as I tried to process what had just happened. Melanie's accusation that I was trying to take everything from her echoed in my mind. I couldn't shake off the feeling of confusion. I had always considered family to be a safe haven, but now it felt like a battleground. After the dinner, Ethan reached out to me the next day. His text read, "Can we talk? Melanie feels terrible about last night." I sighed, knowing he was trying to smooth things over. I wanted to respond with something witty, but instead, I replied, "Sure, I'd like to talk too." We met in a park that weekend, the sun shining brightly, but I felt a heavy cloud hanging over me. Ethan looked anxious as he approached, his brow furrowed. "Claire, I'm really sorry about what happened last night. Melanie didn't mean for it to escalate." I wanted to believe him, but the words stuck in my throat. "Ethan, it's not just about the chair. It's how she treats me. The comments she makes are hurtful." His shoulders slumped as he took a deep breath. "I know she can be a bit much, but you have to understand, she's under a lot of stress right now. Maybe we should just try to avoid confrontation." The disappointment surged in me. "Avoiding it isn't going to help, Ethan. I feel like she's pushing me out of your life. I don't want that." Ethan's eyes softened, but I could tell he was struggling. "I promise I'll talk to her. Just give it some time." Days turned into weeks, and the situation only got worse. I noticed Melanie becoming more aggressive during family gatherings. One afternoon at a barbecue, she sidled up to me and said, "So, Claire, still single? I bet you're just too picky." I felt the heat of embarrassment flood my cheeks. "I'm just focused on my career right now, Melanie," I said, trying to remain composed. "Right, because that's working out so well for you," she shot back, her laughter ringing like nails on a chalkboard. After that, I confided in Luke more frequently, desperate for clarity. "It's like I'm walking on eggshells around her," I told him one evening at our favorite coffee shop. The scent of coffee beans hung thick in the air as I stirred my drink absently. "Have you thought about looking into her past? There has to be a reason for her behavior," Luke suggested, leaning forward in concern. I hesitated, my mind racing with doubts. "I don't want to invade her privacy. What if it makes things worse?" "Sometimes you need to understand the enemy to defend yourself," he replied firmly. I could feel his determination radiating toward me, and I began to consider the possibility. After much internal debate, I decided to do some digging into Melanie's past. It didn't take long to find troubling snippets of information online. I discovered references to toxic relationships and unsettling mentions of restraining orders filed against her by former partners. My heart raced. What kind of person had my brother chosen to marry? Feeling both anxious and resolute, I shared my findings with Luke. "She has a history that worries me. It might explain why she's acting this way." Luke nodded, his expression serious. "You need to confront Ethan again with this information. He deserves to know who he's really dealing with." That evening, I finally mustered the courage to invite Ethan over for dinner. I thought that the familiar warmth of our shared meals would ease the tension. When he arrived, I noticed the stress lines on his face. "Thanks for coming, Ethan. I made your favorite, chicken Alfredo," I said, trying to lighten the mood. "Thanks, Claire. It smells great," he replied, but I could see the worry etched in his eyes. Once we settled down at the table, I took a deep breath, knowing this conversation could change everything. "Ethan, I need to talk to you about Melanie again." His face darkened. "I thought we agreed to let things cool down?" "I wish we could, but I found out some things about her that worry me." "I don't think you truly understand who she is," I pressed, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, concern flickering in his eyes. I laid everything out. her past relationships, the restraining orders, and how she had been sabotaging my career. She's been spreading rumors about me to my clients, and I can't let her hurt you too. Ethan's expression shifted as the gravity of my words sank in. I don't know what to think, Claire. This is a lot to process. Before he could respond further, there was a loud knock on the door. My heart raced as I exchanged a worried glance with Ethan. Who could that be? He asked, his voice tense. I don't know, I replied, feeling an unsettling knot tighten in my stomach. As Ethan opened the door, I felt a wave of apprehension wash over me. I was unprepared for what lay ahead, unaware that the storm was just beginning. Little did I know that this night would unravel everything I thought I knew about my brother and his wife. As Ethan opened the door, my heart raced. Standing on the doorstep was Melanie, her face flushed with anger and something else. Fear, perhaps? I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as she pushed past Ethan, not bothering to acknowledge me. Ethan, we need to talk. Now, she exclaimed, her voice filled with urgency. Ethan glanced back at me, his expression uncertain. We were in the middle of a conversation, he replied hesitantly. Melanie turned to me, her eyes narrowing. You've been filling his head with lies, haven't you, Claire? My pulse quickened. That's not true, Melanie. I'm just trying to protect him. Protect him? She laughed bitterly, stepping closer. You mean trying to keep him all to yourself? I know your type, Claire. Enough. Ethan interjected, visibly shaken. Melanie, let's not do this right now. But Melanie wasn't backing down. Oh, I think we need to. You've been so busy listening to her nonsense, you don't even see what's happening right in front of you. I felt the tension crackle in the air as I tried to maintain my composure. Melanie, I'm not trying to come between you two. I just want you both to be happy. She scoffed, crossing her arms. Happy? You think you can just come in and dictate how our relationship should be? I'm not dictating anything. I'm just concerned for you both, I replied, my voice shaking. Melanie stepped closer, her voice dropping to a low growl. You think you're better than me. You always have, with your perfect job and your perfect life. Well, I'm tired of it. The venom in her words struck me hard. I had never thought of myself as superior to her. I just wanted to be supportive. I'm not trying to put you down, Melanie. I want us to be a family, I said, my heart pounding. She leaned in, her eyes fierce. Family? You're a threat to everything I've worked for. You've been trying to tear us apart since day one. I felt the anger bubbling inside me. I've never tried to tear you apart. I just want my brother to be safe. But before I could finish, Melanie's face twisted with rage. In a sudden, shocking moment, she slapped me hard across the face. The sound echoed in the room, and I stumbled back, stunned. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. Melanie, what the hell? I touched my cheek, the sting radiating through my body, and fought back tears. You can't just hit me and expect everything to be okay, I said, my voice trembling with hurt and indignation. Melanie stepped back, her expression shifting from rage to something almost pleading. I didn't mean to, she mumbled, but her voice lacked sincerity. No, you meant it. I shot back, my frustration boiling over. You've been manipulating everything and everyone around you. Ethan looked between us, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. This is not okay, Melanie. You can't treat Claire like this. The tension hung thick in the air, and I felt a wave of relief that Ethan was finally taking a stand. But as I looked at Melanie, I realized how deeply the situation had deteriorated. I'm done with this, she said suddenly, her voice cold. You think you can just come in here and ruin my life? You're nothing but a spoiled brat. Enough! Ethan shouted, his voice booming. I can't believe this is happening. I thought we could work through our issues, but you've crossed a line. The weight of the moment hung over us, and I knew that this was the point of no return. The fight had become about more than just me and Melanie. It was tearing apart the fabric of our family. Just then, the sound of sirens filled the air, and I felt my heart race. A police car had pulled up outside, and my stomach dropped. What's happening? Melanie asked, panic creeping into her voice. Ethan turned to her, his disappointment palpable. I don't know, but I think someone must have called about the altercation. As the officers approached, I felt a wave of uncertainty wash over me. The situation was spiraling out of control, and I could only brace myself for what was about to unfold. The reality of what had happened was sinking in, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. As the police officers approached, my heart raced, and the air felt charged with tension. I stood frozen, watching Melanie's face shift from anger to panic as the reality of the situation sank in. "Ma'am, we received a report of an altercation. Can you tell us what happened?" one of the officers asked, looking directly at Melanie. "I didn't do anything," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "I just had a disagreement with her." "Disagreement?" Ethan cut in, frustration bubbling over. "You slapped my sister across the face." I could see the officers exchanging glances, their expressions serious. "We need to take a statement from everyone involved," the other officer said. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Melanie has been aggressive toward me for a while now." "It's not just this incident," I said, my voice firm. Ethan looked at me, his eyes wide with a mix of disbelief and regret. "I didn't want it to come to this, Claire. I thought we could work things out." "Clearly, that's not going to happen," I replied, feeling a rush of emotions. I wanted to protect my brother, but I also needed him to understand the gravity of the situation. As the officers took our statements, I could feel Melanie's anger simmering beneath the surface. "You're ruining my life. You think you're the good sister, but you're just jealous," she spat at me. "Jealous? I just want you to be honest with yourself and with Ethan," I countered, my heart pounding. Once we finished providing our accounts, the officers stepped aside to talk privately. I took the opportunity to speak with Ethan, my voice low. "You have to see how toxic she is, Ethan. I'm worried about you." He ran a hand through his hair, his expression torn. "I know things have been difficult, but I love her, Claire. I just need some time to think." Before I could respond, the officers returned. "Ma'am," one of them said, addressing Melanie, "we are placing you under arrest for assault."
"What?"
"You can't do this," Melanie shouted, her voice rising in pitch. "It's just a misunderstanding," she cried as the officers cuffed her and led her away. I felt a mix of relief and sadness wash over me. As they escorted her to the police car, I looked at Ethan. His face was pale, and I could see the weight of everything crashing down on him. "I can't believe this is happening," he said, his voice shaky. "I know it's hard, but you have to understand that her behavior isn't just a phase. She's been manipulating you and pushing me out of your life," I said gently, trying to convey the urgency of the situation. The reality of the moment settled heavily around us. As the police car drove away, I felt a strange sense of finality. The woman who had once been so charming had turned into a figure of chaos and manipulation. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was intense. Melanie was charged with assault and later sentenced to 3 years in prison. I could see the toll it took on Ethan, who was left grappling with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness. Despite the heartbreak, I focused on rebuilding my life and my relationship with Ethan. We spent countless hours talking about what had happened, and slowly, he began to understand the depths of Melanie's manipulations. Luke was by my side throughout it all, his unwavering support helping me heal. One evening, as we sat together in my apartment, he took my hand. "You're incredibly strong, Claire. I'm proud of how you stood up for yourself."
"Thank you, Luke."
"I couldn't have done it without you," I replied, feeling a sense of gratitude wash over me. As I reflected on everything that had transpired, I realized that I had learned valuable lessons about love, loyalty, and the importance of standing up for myself. I had faced a toxic situation head-on and emerged stronger, more resilient than ever. Looking out over the Dallas skyline, I felt a sense of hope for the future. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that I had the strength to protect myself and the people I loved from toxic influences. Life was mine to shape, and I was ready to move forward.